So this is a quick discussion about the three movement types that you see in the XR Grab Interactable component from the XR Interaction Toolkit. And over here, I have three cubes, and each of them have the XR Grab Interactable component attached to them. And for this one, I've selected Instantaneous Movement. For this one, I've selected Kinematic Movement. And for this one, I've selected velocity tracking. And over here, I have two cubes, and basically one of them has a rigid body component attached, and one of them does not have a rigid body component attached. Also, just a note, side note, my table here, which these cubes are on, does not have a rigid body component attached either. So let's go kind of interact with these objects here with any of these and see how these movement types are different. So I'm going to start off with instantaneous movement. And instantaneous movement is a type of movement that basically updates the transformed component for movement. It's not a physics-based movement. So it actually just like follows the position of your hand when you're moving this object. And it actually goes through objects that don't have a rigid body component attached to them. So over here, oops, I lose myself. So up here, you can see, here's a non-rigid body component. As you can see, it goes right through. And my table also goes right through. But a rigid body component, it will collide to it. But one thing is, it's because it's not a physics-based movement, it actually looks kind of strange, the movement. So it doesn't apply physics to this object. So the movement isn't natural, as you can see. So that's what this type of movement is. And then when we look at kinematic, you'll see the difference versus this. It's just not what you expect in, you want to say, real life. So it's not really that realistic. This type of movement that when you touch it to another object like this. So that's instantaneous. Let's look at how kinematic works. So a kinematic type movement is using a kinematic rigid body to move. And a rigid body provides a physics-based way to control movement. A kinematic rigid body can apply physics to other objects that have a rigid body, but it can still go through non-rigid body objects. So here, as you can see, it goes through the cube and also goes through my table. But when I touch it to a rigid body component, the cube with the rigid body component attached, it applies physics to this, and this is much more you want to say natural, the kind of movement that's happening here, which is what you would expect in real life, I guess, when you are interacting with the cube. So this is how the kinematic type movement is different than instantaneous. It uses physics for movement. And then the final one is velocity tracking. And velocity tracking basically moves the object using a non-kinematic rigid body, and it will move by setting the velocity and the angular velocity of the rigid body. So it will collide with objects without rigid body and also with rigid body. So this is my favorite because in many instances, this is the most useful one when you want to want to pick up objects in VR. So you can see it doesn't go through my non-rigid body cube, and it also doesn't go through the table as well. And then also when it interacts with this rigid body component based or cube with a rigid body component, it moves it very much like the kinematic movement, the movement type, and it again looks very natural. So this is a really great way to move objects in VR, and I recommend this one for sure. So anyway, just want to go through these three different movement types for the XR Grab Interactable. Thank you.